We're good.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone really learned to love sailing on Lake Minnetonka and is as sore as I am and your brain hurts.
Yes. You look like your brain is burning.
We are fortunate to be fleet number 1 in the J24s. We are also fortunate of being fleet number 1 in the J22s. And we all know that the people in Annapolis think they're something, but we are the largest yacht club with a J24 fleet, a J70 fleet, I'm sorry, in the United States. And we are fortunate enough to have Jeff Johnstone here to tell you a little bit of story about John Gertie, the crazy guy that we all learned to love, that bought the first boats. And who's the, I don't know, remember the name of the guy that bought the first J22s? Who was that?
Pat Gabrich.
Yeah, there you go, Pat. Hey, so,
Bernie, and more into the mic, babe.
yeah, whatever. And so the thing is, this club, and the thing is, all day long, every one of the people that have visited us and came here, they're going, "What do you do? Why is your club so much fun?" I said to them, when I started sailing, and I'm old, we used to say, "Hey, I got beer, bring a boat, let's go sailing." And this club has not been always about sailing. We come here and sail. Everybody here, our club is based on racing. Our fees are based on racing. We have 120 boats that show up on Thursdays to race. Nobody does that. In Chicago, once a year they have this thing, we have 100 boat beer can. Well, we call that Thursday. So, and all the guests that have been here have been nothing but gracious. Everybody that traveled to be at this regatta has nothing but been gracious to everything, and they sit there and they say, "Oh, oh." Okay, now here's what I have. Jeff Johnstone is here, and he
No big deal.
and he has something to say about our club.
Let's hear.
And so I'll get away from the mic now.
Keep going, you're doing great.
We love you, Bernie. We love you.
I think Bernie ought to go on the road. That's a great show. Hey, thank you so much for inviting me out. And it's been many years since I've sailed on Lake Minnetonka. I was in a powerboat today, and I was kind of glad I was in a powerboat and not on the left side of the first beat of the first race and the right side of the first beat on the second race. So it's just as I remember.
Wait, I did both of those things.
Yeah. I will remember one time we were about dead last. I won't say who was dead last several times today, but they had a great comeback. When boats were hitting the shore, getting lifted into the shore, and in the middle of the beat, we set a spinnaker in the middle of the course, and we beat both corners, getting to the weather mark with the spinnaker up, Lake Minnetonka. So that's what I remember. Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, this December will be 48 years to the day that a couple of diehard sailors from this lake, Lake Minnetonka, found out about a 24-footer that was going to go into production. I think it was Dirtball Anderson that saw an ad that my dad had written, this sort of cobbled together ad and soundings. I don't even know if you got soundings out here at that point. I think it was just East Coast. And he and John Gertie called Rod, I think probably 7 or 8 times in early December of '76. And we're asking about the boat. Is it going to be, you say it's going to be one design. How are you going to keep track of the builders, what's the spec, what's the sale plan. I mean, they were all over they're just grilling them with questions. And when my dad thinks about it now, he said, you know, we knew we wanted to make it strict one design. We grew up as one design sailors, but to hear someone we had never heard from before in the middle of the country reinforce exactly what we wanted to see and feel so passionate about it. I mean, that's what he remembers, the passion that Dirtball and John had, all these questions. And so a month later, less than a month later, John and Rolf Turnquist joined together as partners and ordered the first boat for Lake Minnetonka. And less than a month later, 4 more boats were ordered. And then within 2 months, the first 25, out of the first 25 boats of the J24 in the world, 5 were coming to this lake. So it was, it's really obvious that it ought to be fleet number 1, but there was one thing that one hurdle to clear first. John had to, and Rolf and Dirtball had to convince this club to recognize this boat they'd never heard of that hadn't even launched yet as a one design. And John, several years ago, sent me the letter. He still had a copy of the letter that he sent to the board at this club in, I think it was April 14th of 77, requesting that the board take this up and approve it. And we all know what happened. The board approved it, and it became fleet number 1 in the world. So Rolf and John, and their first boat was 007, which is Oz, a very famous boat name and boat in J24 history. And I first saw the boat in '78. You guys brought it all the way out to Newport, did the first North American, 64 boats. And Dirtball was with the 3 of you, and you had other crew. And you guys took that boat everywhere. You were the ambassadors of the Midwest, I want to say. And I think, and when I think of John and I think of the program, you guys brought with you sort of a culture of having fun all the time, but really loving competitive racing and then fun ashore. And that was sort of a tone that was set early in the J24 class. And yacht clubs clubs that were hosting the early J24 events, for those of you who were there, they had no idea what to do with the fleet. Because just like, well, the committee today was brilliant. It looks like, okay, big left shift for a start, postponement. Back in the old day, no. They would have just let you go. And everyone would have had to start on port. But back then, they didn't know how to deal with, clubs didn't know how to deal with general recalls. They didn't know how to deal with all the crews sleeping on their boats at night, as we did in 78, 77, 79. Dinty Moore beef stew was a bestseller when I was growing up. And then they didn't know how to deal with the fact that they actually had to shut down the kegs, because the J24 sailors were going to stay there until the liquor was gone and the kegs ran dry. So it took, there was a certain culture, but it was sail hard, party hard, and you guys were a huge part of that early on. So, very sadly, John and Dirtball are no longer with us, and but their contributions to the class will, our class and one design sailing will never be forgotten. My dad shared with me, he hoped he would be here, but he shared with me an early story about John. After that first 77 season, you had a handful of boats here, and John really wanted to ramp it up, and let's double the fleet. And so he invited Rod to fly out to Minneapolis. John would set up the party, and this was going to be late January of '78. So this was just a year later, within a year of the fleet forming. We had just had the first Key West Midwinters with 20 boats, which is the well-known event that really launched the class. And so it was late January. John had booked a conference room at a hotel right in Minneapolis. He had like 100 to 200 people all lined up to come, and Rod was going to come in and talk about how great the J24 was. So Rod got stuck at LaGuardia Airport. We had I guess it's now called the Blizzard of 78, but anyways, he was there at LaGuardia. The flight got canceled. He called John, and Rod just assumed the party would be canceled, but a couple days later, the party was on, everyone showed up, and John took great pride in sharing with Rod that the entire night went around the party with a name tag that said, "Hello, my name is Rod Johnstone." And as we got to know John later, that was sort of, I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket of his sense of humor. And of course, there's no surprise, the fleet doubled. Without Rod actually showing up, the fleet doubled the next year. So then 25 years later, all of a sudden Oz is back in Newport. John, Rolf, made it back. For any of you, anyone here at the 25th anniversary in Newport? Yeah. Really fun, lots of great stories. I think John and Rolf were up on the stage talking about like picking up the first boat, all that kind of stuff. But I think mostly it was a celebration of how far the class had come from such humble beginnings, how important people were in the class, and how we all hoped it would continue for generations to come. Last year, John's very close friends, Sean Gilmore and Pat Cabris, reached out to me to let me know how John was doing. And they really wanted me to know that John was just so excited about how Rolf was still sailing J24s, and not only sailing them, but sailing them at a high level with his good friend Billy Allen. And this 45 years after sailing that first North American. So I mean, it just gave John so much pleasure. He also I actually had a chance to talk to John last year as well, but before the call, and he was what he was most excited about, I think, was what was happening at the club and what the impact of the J24 fleet coming in, the club approving the 24 fleet coming in, kind of adopting that one design culture. And how that's proliferated over the years. And now when you look all across here, I arrived right as all the boats were hitting from Thursday night. And you're right, 100, 120 boats every Thursday. I mean, this just doesn't happen. And
Doesn't happen anywhere else.
anywhere else. So, and I think he was really proud of his role in helping the J24 class be founded and the culture. But more importantly, I think it was in seeing his home club adopt the same and proliferate it and support all this one design sailing. So it's more than the J24 class. 7 years later, he and Pat Cabris were really kicked off the J22 fleet. And Pat wishes he was here. He's already back in Devonport. But
Yeah, Pat Cabris was a big.
Pat Cabris, yeah, I totally agree. And so that's my long speech. So it's only appropriate today that on this day, the 2024 J24 Nationals, hosted by Wayzata Yacht Club and Fleet One, it's only appropriate that we have something to thank and recognize a few. Well, everyone really. We're gonna recognize a few people, but it was really everyone who bought a boat, everyone who sailed it for all these years, the fleet captains that keep volunteering every year with no succession plan, and so on. So, yeah, why don't you bring it up? Thank you very much. So,
Old school right there.
So this is J24 Lifetime Achievement Award in honor of J24 Fleet Number 1 founders, Dale Dirtball Anderson, as you all know him, John Jurdy, Rolf Turnquist, and Wayzata Yacht Club, for their unwavering support, enthusiasm, and lifelong dedication to the J24 class and one design sailing.
Yeah!
Ralph to come up, and former Commodore, oh boy, is that a yacht club? Here we go. Wow. Why don't you guys turn around for a...
Cameras over there.
Andy Spence Parsons, former Commodore.
Turn it a little bit. Oh, you're almost there. There we go.
This is the way the whole day went.
Yeah. That's a header.
Huge shift around.
Can we get together over here a little bit?
Let's hear it for Jeff J and Rob and everybody.
I'm going to see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I'd like to just say a couple words. Can you hear me? You know, the influence of that boat has been very important my whole life. And when you think of the influence of the J boats here, what there's, pardon me?
Right after.
So there's what, 14 J24s and there's 29 22s, is that right? And 21 70s. So you think of when you talk about the 120 boats on the line every Thursday night, there's 70 J boats. And there's not every Thursday, but that's half of the fleet. And you look at this yacht club and the influence that the J boats have made for all of us in enjoying wonderful sailing, great compatriots and competitors, and how much fun we can fight like crazy out there and drink like crazy in here. It's really great, and that influence to Rod and to Jeff for what they've created for the sailing world. Jeff, we had dinner last night, and he said they've sold 15,000 J boats. Wow! In all the fleets. Isn't that amazing?
We need more.
So just one thought about that 78 North Americans. So we went there. Our boat name was Oz. We always had a little music before of the wonderful Wizard of Oz when we would play it before the starts to everyone's enjoyment. But when he said the fleets didn't know what to do with us, at that regatta, it was in Newport, and there was a great big committee boat, and the committee race committee had blue blazers on and ascots. And it was at where they sail America's Cup races at the time. And Newport's not the easiest place to sail. And there were, I think, 68 boats. So they weren't quite used to the aggressive sailors of little boats. And we had 10 recalls. After which, they picked up their anchor and abandoned us. True. They picked up and left us out there without saying a word to us. Just one of the many stories. So it's with John's passing, who was, Dirt and John were great sailors, great people, wonderful buddies, and John was one of my absolute best friends. So he would so have enjoyed being here and listening to this and being recognized. So thank you so much.
All right. That's it. Thank you. Music time.